Maria Alvarez's days began before sunrise. She'd rise quietly in the tiny apartment she shared with her son Mateo, careful not to wake him as she dressed for her first job. The city was still dark as she slipped out, her heart heavy with worry. Rent was overdue, and her second job barely covered groceries. But Maria never let Mateo see her fear. To him, she was a superhero, always smiling, always strong. On this particular evening, Maria was more exhausted than usual. She'd worked a double shift at the diner, then cleaned offices until midnight. The subway was crowded, the air thick with fatigue and the scent of rain-soaked coats. Maria clutched her purse tightly, her eyelids drooping as the train rocked her gently. She fought to stay awake, but the exhaustion was too much. Her head slipped sideways, coming to rest on the shoulder of the man beside her. Daniel's heart stiffened at the unexpected weight. He was used to people recognizing him. His face was often in the business news, his name synonymous with wealth and power. But the woman beside him was too tired to notice or care. Daniel glanced down, ready to move her off, but something stopped him. Her face, peaceful in sleep, reminded him of his own mother, who'd once worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. For a moment, Daniel let Maria rest. He felt a strange sense of responsibility, a tug of empathy he hadn't felt in years. The train rattled on, and Daniel found himself wondering about the woman beside him. What battles did she fight? What dreams had she set aside? When Maria finally woke, she was mortified. She apologized, her cheeks burning with shame. Daniel simply smiled, brushing off her embarrassment. He handed her a business card, insisting she call if she ever needed help. Maria, proud and wary, tucked the card away, certain she'd never use it. She'd learned long ago that help from strangers often came with strings attached. That night, however, her world unraveled. Her landlord, tired of late payments, threatened eviction unless she paid by morning. Maria sat at her kitchen table, staring at Daniel's card, her hands trembling. Desperation won out over pride. Maria dialed the number, her voice barely above a whisper, as she explained her situation. She expected indifference, maybe even pity. Instead, Daniel listened quietly. He didn't offer money, but something else, a job at his company's daycare, where Mateo could stay close. Maria hesitated, fearing charity, but Daniel assured her it was her strength, not her weakness, that impressed him. Maria accepted, and the next morning she and Mateo arrived at the gleaming glass building that housed Hart Enterprises. The daycare was bright and welcoming, filled with laughter and color. Maria threw herself into the work, her warmth and empathy quickly winning over the children and their parents. For the first time in years, she felt hope flicker inside her. Daniel watched Maria from afar, intrigued by her resilience. He began to see the world differently, noticing the invisible struggles of those around him. He realized how many people like Maria fought silent battles, their stories unseen by those in power. Moved, Daniel started a foundation to support single parents, using Maria's insights to shape its mission. He invited her to lead community outreach, trusting her lived experience over polished consultants. Maria's life transformed, but so did Daniel's. He learned that true wealth was measured not in dollars, but in the lives you touched. Yet, not everyone welcomed Maria's rise. Some employees whispered that she was just a charity case, unworthy of her new role. Maria heard the rumors, her old fears resurfacing. One afternoon, a parent accused Maria of favoritism when her son got extra help with his reading. Maria's heart pounded as she explained that every child deserved support, especially those who struggled. Daniel stood by her, defending her integrity. The confrontation forced Maria to confront her own doubts. Was she truly worthy of this new life? Could she ever escape the shadow of poverty? That night, Maria found herself at a crossroads. She could retreat, letting fear dictate her future. Or she could stand tall, embracing the chance she'd been given. She chose the latter, pouring her heart into her work. Slowly, the whispers faded, replaced by respect. Maria's programs flourished, and the daycare became a model for others in the city. Daniel, too, changed. He spent more time with the children, learning their names and stories. He saw firsthand the impact of Maria's compassion. One evening, he found her sitting quietly, watching Matteo play. He thanked her for reminding him what mattered. Maria smiled, tears in her eyes. "You gave me a chance," she said, "but you also gave me hope." Their bond deepened, built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Maria's journey from exhaustion to empowerment became a beacon for others. Her story challenged the myth that the poor are powerless, showing that a single act of compassion can spark lasting change. In a world divided by wealth and circumstance, Maria and Daniel proved that empathy and courage could rewrite any story. Maria's new life was not without struggle. Each morning, she woke before dawn, preparing breakfast for Matteo and packing his small backpack with care. She still counted every dollar, still worried about the future. But now she had a reason to hope. The daycare job gave her stability, and the respect she earned from parents and staff slowly rebuilt her confidence. Daniel, meanwhile, found himself drawn to the daycare more often. He'd never spent much time around children, but watching Maria work changed him. He saw how she knelt to speak to each child at eye level, how she listened to their stories, how she comforted them when they cried. He realized he'd spent years building an empire, but had forgotten the simple power of kindness. One afternoon, Daniel watched as Maria helped a little girl named Sophie, who struggled with separation anxiety. Maria sat beside her, holding her hand, whispering gentle words until Sophie's tears faded. Daniel felt something shift inside him, a longing to be part of this world, to make a difference beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. Maria noticed Daniel's presence, and at first she was nervous. She worried he was checking up on her, waiting for her to fail. But Daniel surprised her. He asked questions, listened to her ideas, and even volunteered to read stories to the children. The staff began to see him differently, too, not just as their boss, but as someone willing to learn and grow. As the weeks passed, Maria's relationship with Daniel deepened. They shared lunches in the break room, talking about their childhoods, their dreams, and their fears. Maria told him about her late husband, about the loneliness of raising Matteo alone, about the nights she cried herself to sleep. Daniel opened up about his own struggles, the pressure of running a company, the emptiness that came with success. One rainy evening, Maria stayed late to finish paperwork. Daniel offered her a ride home. As they drove through the city, Maria gazed out the window, lost in thought. "Do you ever feel like you're just surviving?" she asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "All the time," he admitted. "But meeting you made me realize I want to do more than survive. I want to live." Maria smiled, her heart aching with gratitude. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a charity case, but as a person with value. She realized that Daniel, for all his wealth, was just as lonely and uncertain as she was. Their differences faded, replaced by a shared sense of purpose. The next day, Daniel announced a new initiative, affordable childcare for working parents across the city. He credited Maria with inspiring the idea and asked her to lead the project. Maria was stunned. She worried she wasn't qualified, that people would judge her. But Daniel believed in her, and slowly, she began to believe in herself. The project faced obstacles. Some executives resisted, arguing it would cost too much. Others doubted Maria's ability to lead. But Daniel stood by her, and Maria's determination won over even the skeptics. She worked late into the night, meeting with parents, designing programs, and training staff. Matteo often sat beside her, coloring quietly as his mother built a better future for them both. As the new child care centers opened, Maria saw the impact firsthand. Parents who once struggled to find care for their children now had a safe, affordable place to turn. Children who had been left alone after school now thrived in nurturing environments. Maria's heart swelled with pride, knowing she had helped make this possible. Daniel, too, changed. He spent less time in meetings and more time in the community. He listened to stories of hardship and resilience and began to understand the true meaning of leadership. He realized that his greatest legacy would not be the company he built, but the lives he touched. One evening, as Maria locked up the daycare, she found Daniel waiting outside. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a letter of appreciation, signed by dozens of parents whose lives she had changed. Maria wept, overwhelmed by gratitude. "You did this," Daniel said softly. "You changed all of us." Maria's journey was far from over. She still faced challenges, bills to pay, a son to raise, a world that often judged her by her past. But she no longer felt alone. She had found a community, a purpose, and a friend who believed in her. She knew that whatever the future held, she would face it with courage. Daniel, too, was transformed. He learned to measure success not by profits, but by the difference he made. He saw the world through Maria's eyes and vowed to use his resources to lift others up. Together, they proved that kindness could bridge any divide, and that redemption was possible for anyone willing to change. Their story spread throughout the city, inspiring others to act with compassion. Maria became a symbol of hope, her journey from exhaustion to empowerment a beacon for those who struggled in silence. Daniel's foundation grew, supporting single parents and children in need. The world, in small but meaningful ways, began to change. Maria's story soon reached beyond the city. News outlets picked up the tale of the single mother who'd inspired a billionaire to change his ways. Interviews followed, and Maria found herself on morning shows, her hands trembling as she spoke about her journey. She always credited Daniel, but insisted the real heroes were the parents who fought for their children every day, unseen and uncelebrated. Daniel watched Maria's interviews with pride. He saw how her words resonated with people from all walks of life. He realized that her courage had given others permission to share their own struggles. Letters poured in from across the country, single mothers, fathers, and even children, all thanking Maria for giving them hope. Maria read every letter, her heart breaking and healing with each story. But with attention came scrutiny. Some accused Maria of exploiting her story for fame. Others whispered that Daniel's motives were selfish, that he was using charity to polish his image. The criticism stung, but Maria stood firm. She knew her truth, and she refused to let cynicism steal her joy. Daniel, too, faced doubts. He wondered if he was truly making a difference, or just easing his own guilt. One evening, after a particularly harsh news article, Maria found Daniel in his office, staring out at the city lights. She sat beside him, silent for a long moment. "We can't control what people say," she whispered. "All we can do is keep doing the work." Daniel nodded, grateful for her strength. He realized that Maria's resilience was her greatest gift, not just to him, but to everyone she touched. As the months passed, Maria's role at the foundation grew. She traveled to other cities, helping to open new childcare centers and train staff. Matteo, now thriving in school, often accompanied her, his laughter a constant reminder of why she fought so hard. Maria met parents who reminded her of herself, tired, hopeful, desperate for a chance. She listened to their stories, offering advice and encouragement. Daniel, meanwhile, began to change the culture of his company. He implemented policies for paid family leave, flexible hours, and mental health support. He encouraged his executives to volunteer at the childcare centers, to see firsthand the challenges their employees faced. Slowly, the company transformed from a place of competition to one of community. Maria and Daniel's friendship deepened. They shared dinners, celebrated birthdays, and supported each other through setbacks. Maria taught Daniel to cook simple meals, laughing as he fumbled with the spices. Daniel introduced Maria and Matteo to the world of art and music, taking them to museums and concerts. Their lives, once so different, became intertwined in ways neither had expected. But not everyone was happy with the changes. Some board members resented Maria's influence, fearing she was leading Daniel astray. They questioned her qualifications, her background, even her motives. Maria faced their skepticism with quiet dignity, refusing to let their doubts define her. Daniel defended her fiercely, making it clear that her voice mattered. One day, a board member confronted Maria directly. "What makes you think you belong here?" he sneered. Maria looked him in the eye, her voice steady. "Because I know what it's like to struggle. Because I care. And because I'm not afraid to fight for what's right." The room fell silent. Daniel smiled, pride shining in his eyes. The confrontation marked a turning point. Maria's courage inspired others to speak up, to share their own ideas and concerns. The company became more inclusive, more compassionate. Employees felt valued, and productivity soared. Daniel realized that true leadership meant empowering others, not just making decisions from above. Maria's journey was not without setbacks. There were days when she doubted herself, when the weight of responsibility felt too heavy. But each time, she remembered the night she fell asleep on Daniel's shoulder, the moment her life changed forever. She drew strength from that memory and from the people who believed in her. As the years passed, Maria's impact grew. She became a sought-after speaker, her story inspiring policy changes and new initiatives across the country. She never forgot her roots, always returning to the daycare to spend time with the children. Matteo grew into a kind, confident young man, proud of his mother and the legacy she was building. Daniel, too, found fulfillment. He stepped back from day-to-day operations, focusing on philanthropy and mentorship. He and Maria remained close, their friendship a testament to the power of empathy and trust. Together, they proved that redemption was possible, that even the most unlikely connections could change the world. One spring morning, Maria received a letter from a woman named Evelyn, a single mother in a small town hundreds of miles away. Evelyn wrote of her struggles, working 2 jobs, barely making rent, feeling invisible. She'd seen Maria's interview and found hope in her story. "You made me believe I could ask for help," Evelyn wrote. Maria wept as she read the letter, remembering her own darkest nights. Maria decided to visit Evelyn's town. She met with local leaders, parents, and teachers, listening to their needs. She helped them set up a community childcare program, using the model she and Daniel had built. The project faced resistance, but Maria's determination and empathy won people over. She stayed until the center opened, hugging Evelyn as children filled the bright new space. Back in the city, Daniel watched Maria's work with admiration. He realized that her impact was spreading far beyond anything he'd imagined. He began to see his own privilege in a new light, understanding that true justice meant sharing power, not just resources. He started mentoring young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, helping them build businesses that served their communities. Maria and Daniel's friendship continued to deepen. They shared their fears and hopes, supporting each other through setbacks and triumphs. Maria confided her worries about Matteo, who was now a teenager facing his own challenges. Daniel listened, offering advice and encouragement. He became a mentor to Matteo, teaching him about business, but more importantly, about integrity and compassion. As Maria's influence grew, she was invited to speak at a national conference on poverty and social justice. She stood before a packed auditorium, her voice steady as she shared her story. She spoke of the night she fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder, of the kindness that changed her life, and of the power of community. Her words moved many to tears, and she received a standing ovation. After the conference, a government official approached Maria, asking for her help in designing a national program for affordable childcare. Maria was stunned, but Daniel encouraged her to accept. "You have the experience and the heart," he said. "You can make a difference for millions." Maria agreed, determined to use her voice for those who had none. The work was challenging. Maria faced political opposition, budget cuts, and endless bureaucracy, but she refused to give up. She built alliances, listened to critics, and fought for every child and parent who needed support. Daniel stood by her, using his influence to open doors and rally support. Together, they pushed the program forward, step by step. As the National Child Care Initiative launched, Maria traveled the country, visiting centers and meeting families. She saw the impact of her work in the smiles of children and the relief in parents' eyes. She knew the journey was far from over, but she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had turned her pain into purpose, her struggle into strength. Daniel, too, found new meaning in his life. He continued to support Maria's work, but also focused on his own growth. He sought forgiveness from those he'd hurt in his relentless pursuit of success, making amends and building new relationships. He learned that redemption was not a destination, but a journey, one that required humility, courage, and a willingness to change. Maria and Daniel's story became a symbol of hope and transformation. Their friendship, built on trust and mutual respect, inspired others to look beyond stereotypes and see the humanity in everyone. They proved that a single act of kindness could spark a movement, and that true justice was rooted in empathy and action. As the years passed, Maria's work began to change the national conversation about poverty and single parenthood. She was invited to testify before Congress, her voice steady as she described the daily realities faced by millions. She spoke not just for herself, but for every parent who had ever felt invisible. Lawmakers listened, some for the first time truly understanding the stakes. Daniel sat in the audience, pride and awe mingling in his heart. He remembered the woman who had once fallen asleep on his shoulder, and marveled at how far she had come. He knew that his own transformation was just as profound. He had learned to listen, to share power, and to use his resources for good. He had found redemption not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent acts of kindness. Maria's testimony led to new legislation, expanding access to affordable childcare and support for working families. The bill passed with bipartisan support, a rare moment of unity in a divided country. Maria was celebrated as a hero, but she remained humble, always reminding people that change was a collective effort. Despite her success, Maria never forgot her roots. She continued to visit the original daycare, spending time with the children and staff. She made sure the center remained a place of warmth and welcome, where every child felt valued. Mateo, now a young man, volunteered there as well, mentoring younger kids and sharing his own story of resilience. Daniel's company flourished under his new leadership style. Employees felt empowered and supported, and the company's reputation soared. Daniel used his influence to advocate for corporate responsibility, encouraging other business leaders to invest in their communities. He became a sought-after speaker, sharing the lessons he had learned from Maria and the families they served. One evening, Maria and Daniel sat together on a park bench, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. They talked about the journey they had shared, the obstacles they had overcome, and the lives they had touched. Maria thanked Daniel for believing in her, for giving her a chance when she needed it most. Daniel shook his head, his eyes shining. "You changed me," he said softly. "You showed me what really matters." Their friendship had weathered storms, criticism, doubt, and the pressures of public life. But it had also brought them joy, purpose, and a sense of belonging. They knew that their work was far from finished, but they faced the future with hope, knowing they could make a difference together. Maria's story continued to inspire others. New childcare centers opened across the country, each one a testament to her vision and determination. Parents found support, children found safety, and communities grew stronger. Maria's name became synonymous with compassion and justice, her legacy woven into the fabric of the nation. Daniel, too, left a lasting mark. He mentored a new generation of leaders, teaching them to value empathy over ego, collaboration over competition. He invested in social enterprises, helping to create jobs and opportunities for those who had been left behind. He found joy in giving, and peace in knowing he had used his wealth for good. As Maria and Daniel looked back on their journey, they realized that the moment on the subway, the night a poor single mom fell asleep on a billionaire's shoulder, had changed not just their lives, but the lives of countless others. It was a reminder that the smallest acts of kindness could have the greatest impact, and that true justice was found in the courage to care. Years later, Maria stood at the opening of a new community center, her heart full as she watched children race through the doors, laughter echoing in the halls. She saw herself in their mothers, tired, hopeful, determined. She greeted each family with warmth, remembering the days when she'd felt invisible, and vowing that no one who entered would ever feel alone. Daniel joined her at the ribbon cutting, his hair now streaked with gray, his eyes kind. He had become a fixture in the community, known not for his wealth, but for his generosity and humility. He spoke briefly, crediting Maria for the vision and heart behind every center. "She taught me that real success is measured by the lives we lift up," he said, his voice thick with emotion. After the ceremony, Maria and Daniel walked through the center together. They paused in a quiet room where a mural depicted a subway train, a woman resting on a stranger's shoulder, and a city skyline beyond. The mural was a tribute to the moment that changed everything, a reminder that compassion could bridge any divide. Maria touched the painted figures, tears in her eyes. "I never imagined my life would turn out this way," she whispered. Daniel smiled gently. "You earned every bit of it. You showed the world what's possible when we refuse to give up on each other." As the sun set, Families gathered in the courtyard, sharing food and stories. Maria watched Matteo, now a young man, helping a little boy tie his shoes. She felt a surge of pride, knowing her son had grown up surrounded by love and purpose. She realized that her struggles had not been in vain. They had shaped her into someone who could help others find hope. Daniel and Maria sat together, content in the quiet joy of a job well done. They knew there would always be more work, more battles to fight, more lives to touch. But they also knew that together they had created something lasting, a legacy of kindness, justice, and redemption. Their story became a legend in the city, told and retold as proof that anyone, no matter how humble their beginnings, could change the world. It was a story of transformation, of moral courage, of the hidden struggles that shape us all. And it was a story that reminded everyone who heard it that sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with a simple act of kindness. As the stars appeared above the city, Maria closed her eyes and breathed in the peace she had fought so hard to find. She was no longer just surviving. She was living, loving, and leading. And in that moment, she knew that she, and everyone like her, deserved nothing less.